Right, chaps. Right, so it's my turn to speak. I'm not sure if I can really follow those two speeches, but I'll try my best. So yeah, thanks John and Tom. One of the reasons I wanted John and Tom here speaking is they were the two reviewers and editors of my book. So pretty much everything that's in this book is being bounced off John or Tom or both of them as a sounding board. They've been an integral part of actually producing this theory. And then they were kind enough to read through various drafts of the book to sort out the integrity of the model, to say, look, how about putting this in, this isn't clear, and so on. So they were actually integral to the production of the book. So I thought it would be very fitting for them to come along to the launch and speak a little about it. Unfortunately, they've given very good talks, so hopefully I won't make it too flat on my own. I don't actually give a lot of talks, as you may or may not know. I've, I don't know, 5 or 6 in the last couple of years. I like public speaking, I'm just not particularly good at it and not particularly motivated for it. So my apologies in advance if I don't have the wit and charm of Tom. But I'll make the best of it. So, I've got a few things I want to cover off in this talk. It'll probably be a bit longer than the other two. So bear with me, thanks. I thought I'd kick off with a bit of an anecdote, something that relates to why I wrote the book. Is any of you who actually read my blog on a regular basis might be aware that my first mentor in the game was a guy called Jimmy. He's not very active these days. He's kind of got what he wanted out of the game and he's moved on to other things. But when I was a total chode, first getting into game, when I was in a bit of a bad place, I went through like a 1-year dry spell of not getting laid at all. He kind of took me under his wing and showed me about game. And he was very good at it. He was part natural, part learned, and a guy who had a huge respect for the mystery method. Now, Jimmy's game, originally at university, he was my age when I met him. This was 5 years ago. But he used to get laid a lot at university, and what he used to do is he was a bad boy. He was like a Liam Gallagher type character. Looked like Liam Gallagher, was from a similar part of the world, similar attitude, and the same music. And what he'd do is he'd go to bars with his little gang of friends, because he was the leader of this gang of friends. They'd cause trouble, make a lot of noise, smash shit up, maybe start a fight, basically make a massive buzz, and then at the end of the night, look around the room for which girl's giving him the eyes. And then he'd take her home and fuck her. So he got, I don't know, 100 lays this way over the course of about 6-7 years. Now, he got into the game because he was frustrated with the lack of choice, because the girls were choosing him. He wasn't able to just go into the bar and say, I want that girl, and then find a way to have a reasonable shot at getting that girl. What he was actually doing was just smash, bang, see which girl gives him the eye. So he got into mystery method, and he learned technical game, because mystery method promises that you can pick a certain girl and then engineer a certain set of steps to give yourself a good chance at getting that girl in a nighttime or bar environment. So he had a lot of respect for that, and he introduced me to a lot of the technical part of the game. And I learned a lot from it. So one particular time when I was out with Jimmy, because he used to always impress me with how well he read women. He's the best calibrated man I'd ever met at that time. And I remember being out in Camden with him a few years ago, and I'd opened some German girl. She was a tourist, about 18 years old, very much my type of girl, really hot in my eyes. I suppose in the terminology you'd call her an 8. And she was with some like fairly grumpy, frumpy friend, and I was running the set. She used mystery method terminology, and I didn't really know where I was at the set. I knew the method. I was actually reasonably good at game. I'd been getting laid about once a month at this point. But I was talking to the girl, and I just never really pulled the trigger. I was never really confident that I'd got the attraction. I wasn't really sure whether I should extract her, whether I should do something else. And it actually made a problem. I was excessively aloof. And in the end, she just stalled out, got bored. And at a moment when she walked away, like Jimmy came up to me, he said, oh yeah, that girl's well up for fucking. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, that girl, she wants to get fucked tonight. And I was thinking, like, I just had not seen this. I just had not seen it. I was like, I'd had all my little like mental stuff in my mind, my little models, my little ideas, but I didn't have his calibration. I wasn't able to like deduce from all these little signals, which he'd internalized. that she wanted to fuck. But benefit of hindsight now, I think back, I was like, yes, I should have fucked that girl. And so what happened is, like, she disappeared. We went to another bar, and while we turned up the other bar, this is about 30 minutes later, I saw her pushed up against a telephone box outside by some 22-year-old student hipster type. He was actually quite masculine. He just had the hipster like fashion, and he was eye-fucking the hell out of her, encroaching her distance, and she was smiling, loving it. 1 hour later, she happened to be in the same pub we were, and they were making out, and I'm pretty sure that guy fucked her that night. So this girl had come out to get fucked. She'd given me a chance, and I'd blown it. So fair enough, like she got what she wanted, it just wasn't from me. So I was saying to Jimmy, when I was debriefing this, and I was a bit upset about it, right? Because fucking an 18-year-old hot German tourist, the first night you meet her is quite a score for men. Apologies to the ladies. And I was a bit distraught about it, because my inner game wasn't very sorted back then. So I said to Jimmy, I was like, look, how could you see this? How could you see that she was up for it? And he was a bit of an unconscious competence type of guy, and he couldn't really break it down. He's like, oh, I've just got the spider sense, I could feel it. So I said to him, I really kept on him. I was like, Jimmy, you've got to write this down. Look, can you just literally have a think and put a bullet point list of exactly what you were looking at, the sum total of which was the conclusion, this girl's down to fuck. Now, we never actually did it, because that's Jimmy. But I remember at the time really wishing he had. Flash forward about 1 year, and I'm out with Tom, and we're having a beer, as we sometimes did after day game, and Tom's like, you know, I'm going for same day lays right now. I was like, all right, interesting. He's like, yeah, I'm going for same day lays, you know, you got to push it. I'm going out, I'm not even taking my phone, I'm just hitting it hard, trying to drag the girl back. And he'd had some success with this. He'd been getting same day lays. And he just let a few things slip in the conversation. Things like, oh yeah, like there's one of those girls. I was like, what do you mean? Some girl just like ambling down the street, you know? He's like, oh yeah, my friend Anthony, he would call her vulnerable. That's a girl you can, that's a girl you can same day lay, right? Because he developed the spider sense from having spent a couple of months going precisely for this. Because I don't know if you're aware, but Tom's way more hardcore than I am. It's like I push myself hard, he pushes himself even harder. So, I mean, it would never have occurred to me to go out without my phone. That would have been my backup, so I can like kind of weasel out and take a number, whereas he would have just burned the set, run the train, go to the next set. So I said to Tom, I was like, what do you mean? He's like, oh, she's wearing a rucksack. So I was like, right, and? He's like, well, she's wearing a rucksack. That makes it easier to same day lay. So I was like, right, like there's a non sequitur here, right? And so I was chatting to him a bit about it, and I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, she's a rucksack, right? She's a tourist, right? She's obviously got like a guidebook, her stuff in the rucksack. She's been out a long time. You know, she's probably, her legs are probably tired. She could do with sitting down, easy eye date. She's disorientated, yeah. Stick her on the clip at the Greenwich and you've got her, you know? So I said to Tom, I actually sent him in, I thought about this. And like me and Tom are round about the same level at game. Like when we've been on holiday a lot last year and we literally got spookily identical results. But back then he was way better than me at same day lays. So I said, Tom, can you do me a favour? Could you actually write a bullet point checklist of what you look for that leads to this conclusion, this is the girl at the same day lay. And unlike Jimmy, Tom actually did. 1 day later, bullet point checklist. Now the checklist is actually in the book. I mean, the book's got my name on the cover, but that bit of content is actually from Tom. And he's listed it down in bullet points. Things like, what shoes has she got on? If you see a girl walking down Oxford Street at, say, 6 p.m, and she is wearing trainers or Converse, she has reasonably tight jeans, she's wearing some kind of, say, hiker jacket or warm jacket, she's got a rucksack, even better, she's carrying like a London map or an I Love London souvenir bag with like Beatles stuff in it. What is that telling you? What are those signals telling you? Well, the shoes are telling you she's been doing a lot of walking. So girls who are living in London don't really do a lot of walking. A tourist who gets up at 9 a.m. to do Madame Tussauds, London Eye, Buckingham Palace is going to put sensible shoes on to walk. She's going to wear a jacket to protect herself against the elements of unpredictable weather. She's going to have stuff in her rucksack to get her through the day. So these are things which actually are observable signals which let you know this is a girl who's a tourist who's been out all day. Why is a tourist who is out all day prime for a same day lay? Number one is easy to eye date. She's been out all day and had no social contact other than buying a sandwich at Pret a Manger. And people love connection and social contact. So she's going to naturally be more likely to talk. If you encounter at 6 p.m, probably her feet are sore and her legs are tired. She'd love to sit down. Eye date. What else is there? Right, if she's a tourist, it means she probably doesn't know anybody in the area. Or maybe she's got a friend she's visiting who's at work or out with her boyfriend. So she's got no logistical barriers. If she's a tourist, well, if she has sex with you, nobody's going to know. It's not going to be any social pressure for her. If she's a tourist, she's easily bamboozled. She doesn't know the area. She's easily lost. So stick her on the clip at a Greenwich, spin around a little bit, and she'll follow your lead.
Makes me sound like a murderer.
Well, didn't we used to say that if me, you, or John were serial killers, would be extremely effective?
Very good.
Might edit that bit out. But the point is this, is everybody at all times is giving us signals. Right? There's signal and there's noise, and if you learn to read the signals and you learn to interpret what that signal means, you apply a bit of creativity, you can actually reach certain conclusions. So I've given you a particularly crass example, but it runs through all seduction, is learn the signals, learn to interpret them, and then you know how to approach a situation. So one of the things I wanted to do with this book was to use the accumulated knowledge that I've had, John's had, Tom's had, and all our other friends, and actually put it onto paper so that you don't have to figure out who Jimmy is, email him, say, can you write the bullet point checklist? Right, it's in there. And the same day late checklist is in there. So a lot of that is what I was trying to do with the book. So 4 years ago, when I was like dog shit at game, like barely believed it worked, didn't believe that I could get game, didn't really know what was possible with game, I would have loved to have some sort of manual, some sort of like almost like a car mechanic's manual for like his car, something which like lists everything in precise detail of what you need, what to look for, how does it fit together. Now 4 years ago that was way beyond me. I couldn't have possibly done it. The best thing I had available was the mystery method, but that's woefully unsuited to Daygame, and it's kind of old news now. So what I've tried to do is make this book that manual that like current version of me could have gone back in the time machine and handed over to like previous chode me to speed on my journey. That's kind of what I've been trying to do with this book. So that is a segue for me to get into why I wrote it and why I wrote it now. So I've had a lot of people bugging me to write more material over the years because I did Daygame Nitro, which some of you might have been unlucky enough to read. And that was like a rushed book. The method works, it still works, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's a rushed book, it's kind of scrappy. You can tell reading it that I don't have like full grasp of the material. And then I spent a few years not writing anything. I had a big period of game revulsion, like what Tom talked about, and I just didn't want to write anything. But what happened is I've been living what I call the Euro jaunt lifestyle, which John and Tom also live, where we travel a lot, we have a ton of free time, we are our own boss, we don't have full-time jobs, we don't have deadlines, we don't have structure, all the normal things of what you might call the plugged in blue pill inside the matrix work don't apply to us because we've like wrenched ourselves out of this. Now that's a different talk for a different time, but the reason it relates to this book is if you live this red pill unplugged lifestyle, is you're casting around for a sense of purpose. Like you no longer have a structure imposed upon you by the world, you have to impose a structure upon yourself through self-discipline. And the main way that I do this is I have projects. I have little projects, whether it's a hobby or it's a bit of work that I do which motivates me, gives me a goal, and I work towards it. So last summer I was in Lithuania with Tom. did quite well, had a good time, got a bunch of numbers, and then I went back again, and I was there in June, and if I can pat myself on the back a bit, I fucked 7 girls in 14 days, which is the best I've ever done. And it's not the normal part of my life is to do that, right? I'm not like a super pimp player, but this was a particularly like hot period for me when everything was firing on all cylinders, and I had a lot of good luck as well. And what happened is I completely drained myself, and I went through this really weird revulsion where I actually caught the flu, because like my body could not stand the various different like hormonal releases and the highs and the lows of the emotional roller coaster of going out with these girls, thinking, am I gonna fuck her, am I gonna fuck her, getting knocked back, then getting success, then fucking her, and then all this like weird stuff happened. My body actually basically shut down. So I ended up bedridden for a few days with like flu. I got a flight home with flu, which isn't a pleasant experience. And for like 3 weeks, I literally couldn't even look at a girl. I was like completely burnt out. So I finally realized that I'd like overdone the catabolism. I talk about this in the book, the balance between anabolism and catabolism. Basically about building yourself up, working on your life versus going out, hitting the streets and trying to fuck girls is the two things you have to find a balance. So I'd overdone it in one way. I was casting around for projects and I thought, right, maybe now is the time to write a book. I'm at a level where I'm quite confident about my game. I feel if I get a yes girl, I will get her. And if I get a maybe girl, I'll do a creditable attempt at getting her and have a reasonable chance. No girls, you're just not going to get them. So I thought, right, I'll write the book. This was a perfect time to restructure, reorder my life. And originally it was only meant to be a text game book, but I just kept adding to it. The other reason I wrote it is, I'm not going to name names, but I think most of what you read about game is absolute shit. I think it's absolute shit. I think there's all sorts of charlatans and fuckwits who are leading everyone on a merry dance. Like a while, I'll not name names. But yeah, there's a load of fuckwits out there. And even the guys who aren't fuckwits and aren't charlatans, a lot of them, they're overselling what they're giving. So, I mean, this maybe sounds pompous, forgive me, but I thought I'm fairly good at it. There's guys out there who are better than me, there's guys who are better at games, there's guys who get laid more than me with better quality women than me, but I think I do pretty well for the hand I've been dealt. So I thought, right, I read a lot of forums and the blogs where it's the blind leading the blind. And if they were just talking about like music or something, it wouldn't matter. But Daygame is really hard. It's really, really hard. And you even get forums like PUA Hate of people who hate game. And on one hand you can say, oh yeah, just fucking dickheads, who cares? But you actually think like a lot of guys get into this community from a position of being a bit fragile. So for example, for me, I got nicked because I got divorced and I was absolutely distraught and I was like absolutely terrified that I'd never find a hot girl again. So I was a bit vulnerable. Everybody who's into games has their different stories, but not many people come into it from a position of my life's okay. So there's a lot of vulnerable guys come into the game and they get sold the magic pill. Like, oh, he has like 3 secrets to attraction, swallow the magic pill, you'll be banging supermodels within a week. And it's bullshit, it's absolute bullshit. But the problem is it's like malevolent bullshit. Is these guys are like picking your pockets for money. And as if that's not bad enough, what they're doing is giving you shit advice so that you then go onto the battlefield of the streets, the bar, and you get brutal rejection because what you're doing is wrong. And it's not even nice, it's not nice for the girls either because they get weirdos coming up and doing like weird shit with them. But as men, who are into this, like it's actually quite fragile because I'm lucky is I found a mentor who guided me through. And he likes to, yeah.
Do you think there could be some element of eliminating the competition by giving value buys?
Yes. Yes, of course. I mean, there's money involved as well.
Yes.
And I mean, I was lucky as I had a good mentor and I got through okay. But I was thinking if I'd like had a different mentor, like if I'd had like a weirdy, creepy shit one and I'd believed him, I would have gone out and got all those horrendous rejections and not learned. Like I was lucky as I got all those horrendous rejections and I learned. But even having a good mentor and a decent system, it was still touch and go whether I'd get any good at this. So I think a lot of guys, they come in, they get a bad mentor, they learn the wrong game, they get brutally destroyed by thousands of girls, and then they go on POA hate and say game doesn't work, and they're in a tailspin. They've lost years of their life, they've been emotionally damaged, and they're no further forward. So another reason I wrote the book is, yeah, I'm selling it, I'm trying to make money out of it, like I'm not going to hide that, but I think this works, and if that takes a bunch of guys away from the charlatans, then I'll be very happy about that. And then the last reason I wrote it is, like Tom described, is the model's moved on. It's just moved on. So a few years ago, you had what was then cutting edge material, like Daygame material, which was very, very helpful to me, which I learned a lot from. But in those years since, I've done thousands of sets, Tom's done thousands of sets, John Matrix done thousands of sets. We've moved it on. So I thought it was time to capture where the model's at right now, because 3 years is a long time in Daygame. So that's why I wrote it. Okay, the goal of my book. I think John kind of covered it. It's this idea of the black box and unpacking the black box. I think I don't need to go into detail with that. Okay. So I'll start using my slides. What I've tried to do is I've tried to deconstruct my version of game. And I've tried to break it down into tiny little analytically separable units, which you can then practice. That's the purpose of it. And what I've tried to do is I've commissioned art for the book, as you may have seen. So for example, when I talk about girl archetypes, game's supposed to be fun, it's supposed to be creative, it's supposed to be something you enjoy going out and doing. It shouldn't be a chore. Like, it can feel like a chore because of the approach anxiety and the general fact that most of the time you're failing, and then the successes are actually the spikes. So it's actually emotionally difficult. So you want to make it as fun as you possibly can. And one of the ways to make it fun is to engage your creative resources. So I'll not go into too much detail now, because the whole point of the book is to tell you how to do game. I'm just kind of at a meta level here. But one of the things we're trying to do when we talk to girls is, you see the girl on the street, right? The girl who turns your head. And there's a reason she turned your head. There's a reason why you like that girl and not the other hundreds of girls who are there. There's a reason why you think, right, I'm going to talk to her. So what I've tried to do is explain how you cold read that girl, both in a precise psychological sense of you trying to figure out what signals she's giving off and what they mean. But what you're also trying to do is, in a playful mythologizing sense, you're trying to create a larger than life mythology about the girl, so that you can then inform your teasers, you can then inform your assumption stack, you can then figure out a default way to deal with this girl until she's shown you enough of her own individual personality that you can start fine-tuning it for the information you've got. Because a common problem Tom and I as students have is, like, what do I say? Right? Stop, classic thing, what do I say? And we can give you lines, like stop by say, hi, excuse me, I just say something really quickly, I was just over there, I thought I'd come and say you look really nice, you have a very non-European look about you. Now that works, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you do that like 500 times, it's really fucking boring. So what we've tried to do is, like, how can you create a mythology from the information you see from the girl? And that's not easy. That takes a fucking ton of practice. So what I've tried to do is this is just one example, is I've created a bunch of mythologies for you. There's like 10 girls in the book, commonly seen archetypes on the street. Now, I'm not saying these are literally scientifically true, but if you see a girl who looks like that, you've immediately got a bit of scaffolding, a ready-made mythology that you can go to. You've got something to talk about. You've got a way to deal with her. And then she gives you responses back and you can, like, fine-tune it. Now, I only put 10 in there. There's going to be like dozens and dozens and dozens. But I'm trying to convey the mindset of how I approach game, how Tom approaches game. Is we're going in with this very playful, creative, larger-than-life excitement to talk to the girl. And we've got to find a way to deliver that as fast as we can so that she hooks. And also that she bursts out laughing, her eyes sparkle, and she loves the interaction, even if she's married and would never date us. So that's one example. Something else I've done is Again, this is just more, that's actually Zagreb, by the way, that's Jellyfish Square. Is I've tried to be very orderly in how I laid the book out so that you can look at the model. You can point at the particular chapter and you know where to go in the book, and if there's a particular part of the game, say you've done a set and it didn't work out and you want to debrief it, you know where to go in the book. Okay, what I also wanted to do was hyper document the book. I didn't want to talk generally about concepts. Like, I talk generally about concepts on the blog, but what I wanted to do was give you like real conversations, like things that I actually said to girls in the street and on dates, actual text message chats, actual Facebook chats. So these are all actual text message chats that I had with girls, and then I'd break them down and analyse them. Because one problem I had when I first got into game is I'd read about a theory, like say push-pull, and I'd understand the theory, and I'd be like, right, so like how do I do it? Like at what moment do I do it, and like what do I say? Like this, like for example, ages ago I did some one-on-ones with Yad, and the reason I did those is I wanted to see how he did game. I actually wanted to listen to the very words he says. I've been out when Tom's done boot camps, and I've earwigged on his sets. So this is putting down how I do sets. Okay, next, master model. Okay, so apologise if I'm not giving you any gold in this talk, like particular lines or particular super like day tree stories or anything. What I'm trying to do with this talk is, I mean, I'm selling my book, right? I'm trying to explain what's in the book. So this is the crux of it. This is the Daygame model. So I'll just talk you through a little bit about what this is meant to represent. Okay, so there's 4 stages for us here. There's vibe. That means everything that happens before you talk to the girl. It's basically you put your best gear on, you get the bus into town, and you think, right, I'm going to do some day game. That's what happens. Vibe. So we've got this red bar going across the middle. That represents the energy that moves the set forwards. Now this is quite meta level. It's explained in the book, but I like meta level, so fuck it, I thought I'd write about it. So the first energy that drives your set forward is horniness and intent. That's here. Together you call that sexual state. Day game's very dirty. It's very, very dirty. We're not Disney princes wooing Disney princesses. It's very, very dirty. The way I do day game, so what I call our selection, is we're basically giving very sexual commands to girls and seeing how they respond to it. It's very, very dirty. So you're going out with horniness and sexual intent. You're not going out with chill zen vibe. Now there's a time and a place for that, but generally speaking, you're not going out with that. And it's this is the power. It's like, I want to get laid, I want to fuck a hot girl. Like, I want to see what I can do today. That's the energy which gets you out. But there's a countervailing energy, the blue, which takes you the opposite way, which is inertia and weasels. So you have the inertia where you're like sitting on your sofa, you just fire up your PlayStation, you're like, do I really want to go out? I'm kind of comfortable. That's your inertia. And then you have your avoidance weasels, which is the bullshit you tell yourself to not approach to avoid the anxiety. So things like you look out the window, oh, it's a bit rainy, there'll be no girls out. Nah, I'm not going. Oh, my vibe's not quite right, I'm not going to go out. Weasels. So underneath all of this is the emotional control. And this section of the book talks about this, about the movement towards, the movement away, and the emotional control underneath it. Then we get to the street. Now this bit is what you'll all classically recognise as day game. It's the street stop. It's the 10 minutes where you're on the street talking to the girl. So the energy pushing through here is push-pull. I make a big deal of this in the book. It's like basically the central theme of universal push-pull, fractionation. I'll not go too much into it now, but the basic idea is you pick a bunch of matched pairs, like say hot, cold, near, far, distant, close, present, absent, push-pull, and what you do is you ping between them very consciously in all levels of body language, eye contact, vocal tone, and the things you say. You ping between them, and it's this movement which creates the energy that hooks the girl and moves her towards sex. Now that's kind of meta level, don't worry if you don't get that. It's in the book. So you're getting push-pull all the way up to this moment. And then what I've done in the book is every one of these is a chapter. Every single black box here has a chapter explaining, like John mentioned, what the goal is of that section, what you're trying to achieve, what's your tools to get there. So we'll begin with the stop, that's the actual physical get in front of the girl. Then we'll move on to the open, which is the opener, which I'm sure you're all aware of.